Your friend just texted you 3 times. You haven't replied yet. And right now, in this exact moment, your silence is doing more for your power than any message you could send. Let me show you why. I watched a man destroy his entire career in one conversation. Not because he said something wrong, because he explained himself when he should have stayed silent. He walked into his boss's office ready to quit, had the leverage, had the offer from a competitor, had every reason to walk out the door. But instead of saying, "I'm moving on," he explained. He justified. He overshared. He told his boss about his frustrations, his journey, his reasoning. And his boss, who was about to panic, suddenly relaxed. Because the moment you explain, you negotiate. And the moment you negotiate, you've already lost. Machiavelli watched this pattern destroy princes across Renaissance Italy. Not the ones who were overthrown in battle, the ones who talked themselves out of power, the ones who explained their moves before making them, the ones who needed people to understand them more than they needed to win. He documented it, and 500 years later, you're making the same mistake he warned about. Here's what nobody tells you about power. It's not built through action. It's built through restraint. Every time you don't respond immediately, you gain ground. Every time you don't explain yourself, you become harder to read. Every time you don't chase, you force the world to orbit around you instead of the other way around. This is the architecture of dominance, and it starts with one brutal principle: never beg, never chase, never explain. Those 6 words will rewrite your entire social reality if you actually apply them. Not as a philosophy you admire, as a code you live by. Because the moment you beg for anything, attention, approval, a second chance, you announce to every person watching that you see yourself as beneath them. The moment you chase someone who walked away, you teach them that distance makes you desperate. And the moment you explain your choices to people who didn't ask, you hand them a map to manipulate you later. Let me give you a real situation that happened 3 days ago. A guy I know, we'll call him Marcus, had been dating a woman for 4 months. She started pulling back. Fewer texts, vague responses. Classic distance test. And Marcus did what most men do. He chased. He sent longer messages, asking if everything was okay. He explained why he'd been busy. He tried to prove he still cared. And with every message, her interest dropped further. Because chasing is not romantic. Chasing is evidence that you have no other options. Now here's what he should have done. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. When she pulled back, he should have pulled back further. When she went quiet, he should have gone silent. When she created distance, he should have created a void. Because the only thing that breaks a distance test is making the distance feel permanent. When someone fears losing you, they stop testing whether they can. This is not game playing. This is understanding human psychology at a level most people refuse to accept. People value what they cannot control. They respect what they cannot manipulate, and they chase what they cannot predict. The moment you become predictable, you become disposable. So let's talk about how to become unpredictable without becoming unstable. The power of silent control. There's a meeting happening right now somewhere in the world. 2 people sitting across from each other. One is talking, explaining, justifying, trying to convince. The other is silent, listening, observing, calculating. Guess which one has the power? It's never the one talking. Because talking reveals, silence conceals. And what is concealed cannot be used against you. I learned this the hard way in a negotiation 5 years ago. I was trying to close a deal with someone who had leverage, and I made the mistake of filling every silence with words. I explained my position. I justified my offer. I tried to create rapport through conversation. And the entire time, he just listened, nodding occasionally, saying almost nothing. And when I finally stopped talking, he said one sentence, "That's not going to work for me," and walked out. I lost that deal because I gave him everything he needed to reject me. My desperation, my timeline, my constraints, all laid out in the words I thought were building connection. Contrast that with the situation 6 months ago. Different negotiation, same stakes, but this time I stayed quiet. When he made his offer, I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence sit. I let him wonder if I was considering it or rejecting it. I let the uncertainty do the work. And after about 15 seconds, which feels like an eternity in silence, he spoke again. Or we could adjust the terms. I still didn't respond. Another 10 seconds. What would make this work for you? And that's when I knew I had control. Because the person asking questions is the person chasing clarity, and the person withholding clarity is the person holding power. This applies everywhere. In relationships, when someone says something designed to provoke you and you don't react, they feel off balance. In professional settings, when someone challenges you and you respond with calm instead of defense, they question their own position. In social dynamics, when someone tries to read you and gets nothing, they start trying harder to understand you. And that effort, that mental energy they invest trying to decode you, is where your influence grows. Machiavelli wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. Therefore, one must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. Your silence is the fox. Your calm is the lion. Together, they make you untouchable. The art of being unavailable. Here's a test. Check your phone right now. How many unread messages do you have? How many are from people who would not have texted you 6 months ago if you had remained exactly as available as you are now? Probably most of them. Because availability destroys value. Scarcity creates it. This is not theory. This is observable reality. There's a consultant I know who charges $30,000 per session. Same advice he gave 5 years ago when he charged $3,000. Same expertise, same experience. So what changed? His availability. 5 years ago, you could book him next week. Now, you wait 4 months. And the waiting list is what justifies the price. Because when something is easy to get, it feels cheap. When something requires patience, it feels premium. You are doing the same thing with your time, except in reverse. You're making yourself so available that people treat you like a convenience. They text you whenever. They call you randomly. They assume you'll adjust your schedule to theirs. And you do. Because you're afraid that if you don't, they'll move on. But here's what actually happens. The more available you make yourself, the less they value the time they get. The less they value the time, the less effort they put into the relationship. And the less effort they put in, the more you have to chase to keep it alive. Stop. Flip it. Become the person people wait for. Not because you're playing games, because you genuinely have things happening in your life that matter more than being constantly accessible. Build a life so full that your time becomes competitive. And when people have to compete for your time, they treat it differently. They show up prepared. They respect boundaries. They don't waste your attention on trivial things. Because they know access to you is earned, not assumed. I started applying this 2 years ago. I stopped responding to messages immediately. I stopped being available for last-minute plans. I stopped adjusting my schedule to accommodate people who didn't respect my time. And within 3 months, my relationships completely transformed. The people who were using me for convenience disappeared. The people who actually valued me started investing more. And new people entered my life who treated my time like the scarce resource it actually is. This is not about being rude. This is about being intentional. Every yes you give to something unimportant is a no to something that could be significant. Every hour you spend being available to everyone is an hour you didn't spend becoming better. And every relationship you maintain through constant availability is a relationship that will collapse the moment you're not there. Because it was never built on respect. It was built on your fear of being alone, the value of not needing anyone. Let me tell you about the most dangerous man I ever met. Not physically dangerous, psychologically dangerous. I met him at a business event. Confident but not loud, present but not intrusive. And when people spoke to him, he listened without the desperate energy most people carry when they're trying to be liked. Someone asked him what he did. He answered in one sentence and didn't elaborate. Someone tried to impress him with their accomplishments. He nodded and said, "That's solid," and moved on. No excitement, no validation, no need to build rapport. And I watched everyone in that room gravitate toward him. Not because he was trying to be liked, because he clearly didn't need to be. That's the shift. The moment you stop needing approval, you start receiving it. The moment you stop needing companionship, people want to be around you. The moment you stop needing validation, your confidence becomes magnetic. Because need is repulsive, abundance is attractive. And abundance is not about having everything, it's about needing nothing. Most men walk into every interaction with invisible signs hanging over their heads. Please like me. Please validate me. Please choose me. And people can feel it, not consciously, but energetically. They sense the desperation. and it makes them uncomfortable because desperation signals low value, and low value triggers avoidance. But the man who walks into a room needing nothing sends a completely different signal. I'm fine if this works out. I'm fine if it doesn't. I'm here because I choose to be, not because I need to be. That signal flips the entire interaction. Suddenly people want to know why you don't need them. They want to understand what makes you so self-contained. They want to earn the validation you're not handing out freely. And that curiosity becomes leverage. I tested this in my own life. I stopped seeking validation from anyone. Didn't post looking for likes. Didn't fish for compliments. Didn't need people to agree with my decisions. I just moved. And the response was immediate. People started reaching out more, started asking my opinion more, started treating my time and attention like something valuable. Not because I did anything to them, because I stopped needing anything from them. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people won't accept. The people in your life can sense when you need them, and the moment they sense it, the dynamic shifts. They know they have leverage. They know you'll tolerate more. They know you'll chase if they pull back. And whether they consciously use that leverage or not, it changes how they treat you. But when you genuinely don't need them, when you've built yourself to a point where you're complete without anyone, they feel it and they adjust. They respect boundaries more. They invest more effort. They stop testing you because there's nothing to test. You've already proven you can walk away. Control your responses. Control the room. 3 weeks ago, I was in a heated conversation. Someone was trying to provoke me, throwing accusations, raising their voice, trying to get a reaction. And I did something that completely disarmed them. I stayed calm, didn't raise my voice, didn't defend, didn't explain, just listened. And after about 2 minutes of them escalating into nothing, they stopped. Because you can't fight someone who won't fight back. You can't provoke someone who won't react. And you can't control someone who controls themselves. That's the weapon most people never develop, self-control. Not the kind where you suppress emotion, the kind where you decide what deserves your emotional energy and what doesn't. Most people are walking reaction machines. Something happens and they respond immediately. Someone insults them, they get angry. Someone ignores them, they panic. Someone challenges them, they defend. And every single one of those reactions is predictable. And predictability is weakness. But when you pause before reacting, you create a gap. A moment of uncertainty where the other person doesn't know what's coming. And in that gap, they start second-guessing themselves. Did I go too far? Did I misread this? Is he unfazed, or is he planning something? That uncertainty is your advantage. Because while they're questioning themselves, you're observing them. You're watching how they behave when they're not getting the reaction they expected. And behavior under pressure reveals truth. I've used this in every type of conflict. Professional, personal, social. And it works the same way every time. The person trying to provoke me runs out of energy before I run out of calm. And when the dust settles, everyone watching remembers one thing. I didn't break. And the person who didn't break is the person people respect. Not the person who won the argument. The person who didn't need to argue. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote that a wise prince must never let himself be provoked into showing anger. Because anger is a confession of loss of control. And loss of control is loss of power. Your ability to stay composed when everyone expects you to break is the single most intimidating quality you can develop, because it signals that you operate from a level of discipline most people will never reach. Become the man they can't read. You want real power? Stop being an open book. Stop explaining your thoughts. Stop revealing your plans. Stop sharing your next move. Because the moment people can read you, they can manage you. They know what bothers you. They know what excites you. They know what you'll do next. And that knowledge becomes a leash they can pull whenever they want a specific reaction. I watch men destroy their own leverage every day by oversharing. They tell people their goals before achieving them. They announce their moves before making them. They explain their emotions before processing them. And every piece of information they release becomes a tool someone else can use. Not out of malice, just out of human nature. Because people unconsciously use what they know about you to predict and influence your behavior. So here's what you do. You build a gap between what you show and what you are. Not through lying, through selective disclosure. You share results, not processes. You share decisions, not doubts. You share positions, not the journey to get there. And that gap creates mystery. People can see what you've done, but they can't see how you did it. They can see where you are, but they can't see where you're going. And that uncertainty keeps them engaged, curious, and cautious. Think about the most powerful people you know. Not the loudest, the most powerful. They don't overshare. They don't over-explain. They move quietly, decide quickly, execute without announcement. And only after it's done do they let people know what happened. By then, there's nothing to debate, nothing to question, nothing to stop. The move is already made, and that's the position you want to operate from. Not seeking permission, not building consensus, just moving with certainty and letting the results speak. Strategic withdrawal. Here's the move nobody teaches you. When you're too present, you become part of the background. When you pull back strategically, you become a question mark. And question marks demand answers. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. There's someone in your life right now who takes you for granted. Maybe a friend, maybe a romantic interest, maybe a colleague. They reach out when they need something. They expect you to be available. They assume you'll always respond. And you do, because you don't want to seem cold or unavailable. But here's what's actually happening. Your constant presence is teaching them that you have nothing else going on, that your time is unlimited, that your attention is always accessible. And low-key, they're losing respect for you without even realizing it. Now watch what happens when you pull back. Not dramatically, not with explanation, just gradually. You take longer to respond. You're less available for last-minute plans. You're present when you choose to be, not when they demand it. And almost immediately, their behavior shifts. They start wondering why. They start reaching out more. They start putting in effort they weren't putting in before. Because your absence created a gap. And gaps create tension. And tension demands resolution. I've done this in my own life and watched relationships completely transform. People who used to treat me casually started treating me carefully. People who used to assume I'd always be there started appreciating when I was. And people who were taking advantage of my availability either stepped up or stepped out. Both outcomes are wins, because you either get better relationships or you clear space for better people. Machiavelli wrote that absence is to love what wind is to fire. It extinguishes the small and enkindles the great. If someone truly values you, your absence will make them realize it. If they don't, your absence will reveal that too. Either way, you win. Because you stop wasting energy on people who don't deserve it. Never explain yourself. Last year, I made a decision that confused people. I turned down a high-paying opportunity to pursue something risky, and everyone wanted to know why. Friends, family, colleagues. They asked questions, they gave advice. They wanted me to justify the decision, and I didn't. Not because I was being difficult, because explanation dilutes conviction. The moment you explain, you open your decision to debate. And when you open it to debate, you give other people permission to question what you've already decided. So I just said, I'm moving in a different direction, and left it there. No justification, no defense, no attempt to make them understand. And you know what happened? Some people thought I was crazy. Some people thought I was arrogant. And some people respected the hell out of it. But here's what matters. None of their opinions changed my decision, because I wasn't seeking permission. I was informing them of what was already done. That's the shift. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop negotiating your choices with people who have no stake in your outcome. You stop diluting your vision by letting other people's fears contaminate it. And you stop wasting energy trying to make people understand things they'll only understand after you succeed. Explanation is a trap. It feels like you're building understanding. But what you're really doing is giving people ammunition to talk you out of what you know is right. Because most people are not equipped to understand your vision. They're operating from their own fears, their own limitations, their own worldview. And when you explain yourself to them, you're asking them to evaluate your decision through a lens that was never built to see what you see. So stop. Move in silence. Let your results be your explanation. Let your life be your defense. And let the people who need to understand catch up when they're ready. Never chase again. Here's the final truth that ties everything together. The moment you stop chasing anything or anyone, you reclaim your power. Because chasing is an admission. It's an admission that you believe they have something essential that you lack. And that belief shifts the entire dynamic in their favor. I spent years chasing approval, chasing relationships, chasing opportunities. And every time I chased, I lost. Not because I wasn't good enough, because chasing itself is a signal of low value. It says, I need you more than you need me. And the moment someone believes that, the relationship is over. You might still be interacting, but the power dynamic is set. They lead, you follow. So I stopped. I stopped chasing people who went silent. I stopped chasing opportunities that didn't respond. I stopped chasing validation from people who weren't giving it. And I redirected all that energy into building myself, into becoming someone who doesn't need to chase, because what's meant for him comes to him. And people felt the shift. The ones who mattered started investing more. The ones who didn't faded out. And my life became cleaner, simpler, more powerful. This is the final piece. When you combine everything we've talked about, never begging, never chasing, never explaining, staying silent, being unavailable, needing no one, controlling your responses, being unreadable, withdrawing strategically, you become a different type of man. Not louder, quieter, not more aggressive, more controlled, not more available, more selective. And that combination makes you magnetic. Because the world is full of men who beg, who chase, who explain, who react, who overshare, who need validation. But the man who does none of that, he's rare. And rarity creates value. So become rare. Become the man who needs nothing, explains nothing, chases nothing. Become the man who moves in silence and lets his presence do the talking. That's the man who can't be replaced. That's the man the world orbits around. That's who you're becoming.